No, I generally just think that it is becoming difficult to convince people that doing a bird migration count for, 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is an appealing or solid use of their time for whatever reason. So yeah, I mean, we have, at least, before COVID, we had started a program where young people could come out to one of the watch sites, say the Avalon Sea Watch or the Cape May Hawk Watch, and spend a half a day or a full day with the counter and learn about what was going on. That was a good program for us. We reached a few people, like middle school or high school aged folks that way. It's something that since COVID, we haven't been able to bring back on board quite yet. But I think, that's going to be it, getting out and, doing talks in person, doing talks, via Zoom, trying to convince people that, these are really worthwhile projects, really good uses of their time, and also really good ways to, for early career professionals, great ways to start building up their resume, doing really solid work. A lot of people who have come through Cape May have gone on to do their masters and their PhDs. So there's a lot of great examples out there. And I think if we can kind of all put our heads together in terms of looking at career paths and the value of the work, we could bring a few more people in that way. But no, it's pretty tough out there right now.
Tom and everyone, one thing that we found here in terms of young folks is at our Hawkwatch site, we probably had, I think there's about 4, I can remember, kind of stellar young birders and hawk watchers that have contributed greatly. All 4 of them were homeschooled. And I think the homeschool group of high school students is the easiest, no, not the easiest, is the best source, because they have more flexibility in time. And as opposed to regular public school where they got to be at school from 7:30 to 3:30. So if people can get access more into the homeschool group somehow, all it takes is a couple of good connections, and then the word will spread. I've found that is a possibility.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Vic. We've had that same experience with homeschoolers at our Hawkwatch. One of our long-term counters actually came to our site first as a homeschooler, and we've just found that whole community, just those kids, really easy to engage with. They're wonderful speaking and with adults, and really impressive attention spans compared with other kids their age. And they're often the ones we see coming back again and again. So that would be a great community to kind of try to get in touch with, for sure.
Let me, am I interrupting you?
Go right ahead.
I was going to respond to something that Tom alluded to, and when he said the value of the work. And I think that one of the things that I've thought about several times, first of all, we have a count that is 90 days long, from the 1st of September to the end of November, and we have a fairly modest count anyway. So within that 90 days, and that combination means there's probably more slow days than active days. But those days when we don't see birds or as many birds is still data and still valuable data, right? It tells us something. And so I think the value of the work and the science, we've been doing it long enough that when we started,
I think
weren't taken very seriously from a science standpoint. I remember the joint conference between RRF and HMANA, and it sort of put the validity of point counts back on the map for professionals, right? So we've all known anecdotally that this isn't just recreation, that we're doing this for a purpose, and all this data goes somewhere. But I don't know that, and something that HMANA could probably help with, I don't know that there's some kind of return on what we all provide that can, it's all trend data. 1 or 2 years isn't going to tell you everything. We have to be careful about what we extrapolate, but to be able to harvest some of what we can extrapolate and be able to sell, if you will, the notion of counting these birds for scientific purposes has, in our case, attracted people to the platform that might not be there otherwise. It's not just recreation, it's not just fun. It's there gathering data that can be utilized for conservation purposes, and it's all long-term, and you're right, slow. But we're gathering this. I don't know that I could tell you. I've looked at back through our stuff, and we can tell you what our trends have been at our site. But I don't know about the comprehensive picture, and with climate change and what we definitely think, again, anecdotally, that we're seeing things timing that are different. We're seeing ospreys at a different time of year, and we're seeing, and so that data is usable for us for recruitment purposes, I think, to establish the validity of the investment that we're all making and counting. And so I'm starting to ramble, I think, but does any of that make sense about maybe if we got some of this information and we're able to illustrate what we were learning from it in a more concise, consolidated way, I think it would help attract more people to the work.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think we could do a better job. HMANA could do a better job, stressing the importance of the data. We're always trying to get word out more on the RPI project too, which we haven't done the best job with. We've kind of, it's a project that HMANA and our 3 other partners kind of do in our spare time. There isn't any RPI funding right now, therefore, we don't always promote it in the best way. Thanks to a Hawk Mountain grant, we just created a new RPI website, which is fantastic. If people haven't visited it yet, check it out. RPI, I'll put it in the chat here. But yeah, that's something we could certainly do better, is just getting the word out and the importance of the data and what it's contributing to. That's a good point. Does anybody have any other anything to add on this topic? Kind of the next thing we could talk about was a question about it's kind of on that same topic, but when your Hawkwatch gets busy and there's only one counter, it's really hard to interact with visitors. So it kind of stems from the same problem, not having enough volunteers or help at your watch site. But that was another question that came up, and it's a tough one because we all want to be, really welcoming and open at Hawkwatch sites, or try to be, and engage with people as best we can. The visitors might be your next potential, counter if they're really interested. So it's tough. I'm sure everybody's been in that position before, when you're trying to count a kettle of broadwings and somebody's asking you what you're doing or what's going on. So I know at our local site in New Hampshire, we've had a lot of success finding or connecting with local schools. We have a graduate school in the town next door. So we develop internships for interpretive naturalists. That's certainly works out really well for us. So the counter can just count as they do at, Cape May, Hawk Mountain, a lot of other sites. But yeah, it's hard when you're just an all volunteer site, and maybe not able to hire or find a volunteer interpretive naturalist, right? So interpretive signs can really help. The Hawkwatch Fund is our grant that we provide for the monitoring network. So we have a few $1,000s. It's growing, but right now it's around 3,000 that we make available to watch sites every spring. And interpretive signs have become really popular. So that's a great way you can you know, have some content, some info for people if you're busy counting. We always have HMANA brochures if you're interested, or site flyers. You know, some of you have had set up the site flyer with HMANA, which is a great program. Anybody else have thoughts on that topic? I guess not.
Julie, I'll say one thing. A couple of years ago, I decided to try and post a sign at the main entrance to our Hawkwatch site for visitors who don't know how Hawkwatch is done. And it's a one. If I can share my screen, I can show you. It's the basic rules of hawk counting etiquette. And
Oh, nice. You should be able to share. You're a co-host, Vic.
I'll try.
Okay.
So it's just
I like rule number 1. That's a biggie.
that's rule number 1. Those are especially in September when the broadwings are going. But this helps if you don't have anyone to be able to interact. At least this will tell them what's going on and maybe why this guy's not talking to me or saying hi. And I think it does help.
Yeah, I bet.
I try not to make it sound stern though, but yeah, sometimes it can be hard when someone shows up and you have a red shoulder over here and a couple of red tails over there and a Sharpie on the other side of the building, and you're trying to keep track of them all, and then a whole family drives up and gets out and bothers you. But you just have to do your job.
Right. Stressful. Speaking of signs, Vic, you run this idea by people. We were trying to think of some ways we could just think of some other resources for the monitoring network, and in addition to site flyers and brochures, on some of my Raptor road trips, I've seen how so many sites don't really have much signage. They may have like a hawk migration or a International Hawk Migration Week banner for part of their season, but there wasn't a lot of signage, and I wonder, some of the more established sites, of course, have very good signage, but most of the volunteer ones don't. So we were kind of thinking of developing some kind of sign. At first, we were thinking maybe like a permanent interpretive sign, if we could get some funding for that. But I think with vandalism being an issue at so many sites, maybe just having like like those political signs that you see every election cycle that drive you crazy, something like that, just the metal frame, and it could say, the name of your Hawkwatch, have your logo, maybe your web address, and that this site is part of the HawkCount migration monitoring network, and all are welcome, something like that. Do you think some of you would be interested in a sign like that? I mean, it would be something that you could pick up and take with you at the end of the day, so you wouldn't have to worry about vandalism. Yeah. Okay. this is something we're thinking about for next year, maybe. So,
Yeah, that would be good. Definitely, you'd have to, in our case, we'd have to take it with us at the end of the day. Because if you leave something up there that you don't want to lose, it normally doesn't last through the night. So,
right. Yep. I know that's a problem. Well, moving on, I know that one thing that's come up quite a bit, not just here in the Northeast, but it's seemingly from a lot of hawk watchers is kind of changing wind patterns. You know, with climate change, things seem to be, you know, it's the nature of hawk watching for, you know, to deal with kind of the ebbs and flows, obviously good days and bad days, but I feel like I've been hearing a lot of reports from sites just not seeing as many birds, maybe seeing birds a lot later than usual. And it seems to be hitting some sites a lot harder than others. Just not seeing the big movements of broadwings. And I mean, like for, you know, a decade or more, maybe. And I know we're definitely seeing some changes in winds here in New England where I am. We went pretty much all of October without a cold front, which was crazy. And that's kind of prompted the question, another question, which we don't even have to get into, it may not be applicable, but just should sites move their locations? For some of these sites, they're considering it because they're just not really seeing birds. And do you change sites? Do you, even if you have 10 or more years of data? You know, it's a tough question because we want people to be able to enjoy hawk watching and see birds, but we also obviously want to hang on to that, the history of the site and the long-term data. So, but anyway, I'm just curious what people are seeing as far as just changes, overall wind pattern changes and shifts in migration timing, especially for some of you who have been doing this 40 or 50 years, which is impressive. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say that we haven't really seen any changes in timing as much. But what we have noticed is that there are a lot fewer cold fronts. We live by strong northwest winds, and when we do get cold fronts, we don't seem to see persistent northwest winds for as long. We used to see northwest winds for 2 or 3 days, and now it's northwest winds for 1 day and then southwest winds as the front moves through. We do have, I can't report on anything, but we do have a local university where there's a computer professor who is analyzing all of our long-term weather data to look at patterns and see if there are any changes statistically. So that's what we've been seeing.
Okay.
I totally agree with you, David. Here at Rockfish Gap, we our favorite day is a northwest wind. This year we haven't had many, and then when we do, or we notice we have this year we've had tons of days just clear blue sky, no clouds for some reason this year. And I haven't gone through and looked at the numbers, but that really stands out for me. No northwest fronts. If they do, it's just 1 day, then it's gone. And then the rest of the week is just clear blue sky, which is just killer. And that's what I remember from this year.
I totally agree with that. We even started looking at a statistic of how many bright blue sky days with no clouds we had. The other thing that I noticed was more east winds than is the historical pattern.
Okay, interesting. I'm just taking some notes.
David, I'd love for your computer guy to be available for multiple sites like ours to analyze. I'd love to know what the real.
Yeah,
deal
I
is.
can't wait to see what he finds. So he's a data miner, so we'll find out soon, I think.
But in
And
the
he also
bigger
has a couple students working on it as well. So
Oh, that's great project. But overall, this actually is very scary to me because if the weather and climate are changing the bird flights, their numbers or patterns, the reason it's scary to me is then you can bring up the argument, well, then what good is a HawkWatch site? I mean, in terms of monitoring populations, if you have low population, low numbers at your HawkWatch site for a season or 2 or 3, how do you know it's real or whether it's just due to weather or climate? That's scary to me.
and I
you know,
think that's the value of the RPI project, is that
Yeah.
it's multiple sites over a large scale, and hopefully you could pick up on patterns like that.
And it's using other sources of data like Christmas bird count, breeding bird surveys, and so forth, and they put it together, like the one they did with the red-tailed hawk. And I use that as an example and trying to show people how important it is to participate in these projects.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about that study too, David. You'll have to share it with us at HMANA. I am seeing a lot more people using HawkCount data, a lot of data requests this year, and a lot of students keyed in on using weather data along with the count data, which is something we didn't really see before. So I think there's a lot more research going into climate and climate change. Okay, well, moving along, let me see. What another question that has come up. I am always talking to hawk watchers about this when I visit sites is visibility. That seems to be another big concern for people, just issues with tree growth. And it's an issue a lot at sites, whether they're on private or public lands. Just keeping up with that, how to deal with that has been tricky. And we are often asked that, at HMANA, what do we do? How do we work with these, state agencies or private landowners to keep up? So, we do have our HawkWatch Fund grants. I know some people have put money towards building towers or raising platforms to kind of keep up with tree growth in areas where they're not allowed to cut. I wanted to mention that I do write a lot of letters of support to HawkWatches. I'll put that out there if anybody is working within a state park like we do here in New Hampshire, and they think a letter of support would be helpful. I can always write one of those, stressing the importance of maintaining a view or the importance of, that site contributing to long-term understanding of raptor populations. So reach out if you think that would help in any way. Every situation obviously is different, but anybody have any thoughts on that or have that particular challenge at their site?
We definitely have that challenge at our site, and it's in a state park, and they're just not inclined to be cutting any trees down. And the National Wildlife Refuge that we thought about moving to has the same issue, and I had a meeting with them today about that very subject, and they're just kind of anti-tree cutting, which is understandable.
Yep. We kind of have that struggle every year with our state park in New Hampshire and have to go through a lot of red tape. They do end up letting us work with one of their tree crews and take out a number of trees each year. It's mostly cutting trees back because we've got big ancient red spruce, but they do let us take some occasionally. But yeah,
I
it's
will
tricky.
say it's not always a money issue, because we've offered to help with that and fund people with chainsaws or do whatever, but I think they're worried about complaints by campers and other visitors. There's just issues like that, which, and I'm talking about loblolly pines that are kind of basically weeds anyway. You know, they're not majestic redwoods or anything like that. So I don't know. It's been a struggle for us.
Yep. We're always stressing the importance of maintaining the view. You know, we get so many thousands, probably 6,000 hikers to our HawkWatch every year. And, you know, they want to see the view of the White Mountains and the whole, you know, view of Vermont and into Massachusetts. So that works for us. It's stressing that, you know, we're benefiting everybody by maintaining the view. So I don't know. Let me see where we are at, about 7 o'clock. So another question that has come up, maybe I'll ask this one, and if anybody has any other questions, they can throw them out there. Accessibility issues. Has anybody had any of those at their sites? That's kind of a one that comes up from time to time, whether it's wanting to make things more handicap accessible, getting porta potties installed, and then there's just the issue of access for a lot of sites, as you know, land ownership changes, things like that.
We have all of that as issues at Mendota. First off, it's kind of a long drive to get there from anywhere, and it's a long, steep walk to get from where you can park your cars to the HawkWatch. Julie, you were there, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
That limits, you know, who we can get to be regulars there.
Yeah.
We also have some issues with who owns the site. It's kind of changed in recent years, and we got to try to be careful of that we don't get run off of there from a new landowner.
Yeah, we had part of the site exchanged hands, 2 years ago, I guess it was, and I immediately was able to get in touch with the new owner, and he was quite open to us continuing to come up there. So I was relieved about that. So, but
Good.
we don't.
That's good.
There is an issue about the other part of the site where the tower actually sits, and beyond that. So we don't. You know, that is a concern.
If you ever feel like a letter of support would help, Ron, with the new landowner, please reach out. I'd be happy to get in touch with them.
Thank you. Well, he said we come on up. He was happy to have us. So that's
Good.
not an issue. Turned out he was interested in hang gliding off of there, or parasailing off of the mountain. So they used to do that when we first started up, or I first started years ago. Laura, you probably remember that too.
Yeah.
There were people actually back then. You could actually drive up the old Tower Road. Just washed out to where you couldn't really get up there at all with anything. But this new owner worked on the road some, so he can get a four-wheeler up there. But I haven't seen anybody up there with any other vehicles. Of course, I wasn't able to get up there the last 2 years because I got bad knees and can't climb to the tower anymore. So.
Okay. Well, I will ask this while I have you guys here. Does anything come to mind as far as resources you can think of that HMANA could provide to the network, you know, in addition to our grants or brochures and site flyers or signage? Is there anything you can think of that might be helpful to you that we're not currently doing? We're always trying to think of new ways.
I was just thinking, you know, this is simple, but because I'm a pencil to paper person, I would love to have a form, you know, to fill out, you know, check off, write notes on, what have you. Because, you know, if there's only myself and another person, I'm not going to be on my phone trying to do it live onto the website. So a form of some sort. I think there used to be, but that just dropped into my mind because I was using a notebook and trying to be organized. But
Okay, we do have the HMANA like standard data sheet is on our website. And you can download it there and you can actually alter it if you want, because there's species on there that you don't necessarily see at Mendota, but yeah, I can send it to you after the meeting. It's kind of buried on our website. It's kind of hard to find, so I'd be happy to send you a copy and you can just print them out.
I
Thank
tried
you.
to get those, 'cause like she said, Teresa said, we used to use them, and I tried to get them. I couldn't find them on the website. So.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I looked before. Yeah, I looked. I couldn't find it either. So
Okay, that's good feedback. I will unbury them on our website.
thank you.
And actually, we'd like to create kind of a forum on our website. That's something we're going to be talking about at our annual meeting, I'm sure. This weekend is just plans for the new year, and that's something we want to do, is have like an area of our website that's just for hawk watchers and site coordinators. So it would, that would be a great place to put our data forms. So I will make a note of that. Anything else? Oh, here, I have to look at the chat. Frank is chiming in. How about a video on becoming a hawk counter to present at community meetings or other gatherings? That's a good idea, Frank. Yeah, we did used to have kind of a canned HMANA video, PowerPoint that we shared. So we just need to update one of those. We don't really have a video on becoming a hawk counter. We do have a whole page on our website about becoming a hawk counter and what to bring the first time you're hawk watching, but I'll make note of your video idea. It's a good one. I'm also going to just put that RPI address in here while I'm thinking of it. In the chat, if anybody hasn't checked it out yet. We started this year, just in the last few months, the Adopt a Hawkwatch program. Is anybody familiar with that? It's kind of a trial run. We're seeing how popular it is, but basically we have a button on our website that allows donors to make a donation directly to a Hawkwatch site. And so we're keeping track of those donations, and then we'll reach out. The idea is we'll reach out to those sites at the end of the year and let them know if they have any funds and how they'd like it spent. Haven't really figured out yet if this is going to be a check to the Hawkwatch. If it's an organization, we could do a check. We can't really do checks to volunteers, but we could, if you're in need of a pair of binoculars or brochures, we could put it towards the printing of brochures or something. So that's something we'll try and promote more in the coming year. Oh, okay. Frank said he was thinking PowerPoint, not video. Okay. Thanks, Frank. I will make a note to do that because that's a great idea. Have that HMANA PowerPoint available. I'm also willing to give presentations. In person is ideal, but Zoom is kind of the way the world is working right now. It's a lot easier. So I'm always happy to give HMANA presentations. I'm giving one next month to a bird club in California, just all about HMANA and what we do and RPI. So keep that in mind if you're looking to have somebody come and speak to your members or volunteers.
Samantha, have you ever been approached from birding festivals or anything like that to do presentations? Because I would think that would be a way to kind of reach out to a large number of the birding community.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've done a couple small ones. We were going to go to the biggest week in birding, had a table set and some presentations lined up and some hawk watches that we were going to run. And then COVID hit, so that didn't pan out. But Josh Haas and I are both talking about making it out this coming spring. But yeah, it's something we haven't really broken into the birding world much. It's usually the Raptor festivals or Raptor conferences that we go to. So it's a good idea. Well, does anybody have any other questions they want to throw out there or get feedback on? Not really. Maybe everybody's as tired as I am. It's been a really, really long day. Well, I don't know. I don't think I have any other questions to go over. Those are the main ones that were sent my way from this region, but I'm really appreciative of you guys taking the time to join tonight. I look forward to having more of these and just sharing, even if it's kind of a recap at the end of a fall season, just how everything went and checking in. And I really appreciate all you guys are doing. Raptor monitoring, it means a lot.
Can you share emails? Can you share emails of this group tonight?
If everybody is okay with that, I'm happy to. Does anyone have an issue with that? Okay, yeah, we'd be happy to.
That's a good idea. And also for Teresa and anyone else, if you can't find the HMANA data sheets, I have been using them for years, but I've recently modified them to at least improve them for our site. And I'm welcome to share. You can take a look and see if you like them.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Julie,
I was just gonna say I'll share that original with you too, Teresa. Go ahead, Vic.
I'll also help you make a plug for a Raptorthon in the spring. If you guys aren't involved in Raptorthon, at least find someone at your Hawkwatch site, especially if you're a small Hawkwatch site and you need some funds. Try and get a small, diverse team of 3 or 4 people who don't overlap in their same friends and network to reach out, and you'll bring in several $1,000s, both for you and your Hawkwatch site if you want.
Yeah, it's been great for some of these small Hawkwatches that want to just raise money for printing brochures every year, or making t-shirts one year. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I highly encourage you to do it. And also, just because it's the right season, Winter Raptor Survey is coming up. So if anybody's interested in setting up a route, you can check out the HMANA website. That's always a lot of fun. I just run one survey, the same route every winter here along the Connecticut River, and see a lot of roughlegs. And it's just a great way to, in between migration seasons, to get out and see birds.
What's that called again?
Winter Raptor Survey.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's lots of info on the website.
When does that start this year?
Right. The window, it starts today. It's December through February.
Oh, got you. Okay.
So if you're going to run like 2 surveys, we recommend like a December one and a January or a February. If you're just doing one, then January is a great month to do it, but there's a lot of flexibility in there. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good meeting everyone.
Yeah,
Julie.
good luck. Good luck
You
counting.
actually
for
reminded
anyone
me
who's
of
still-
something.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? I know it's late, but it just the last conversation reminded me of it. And that is, we have other places that we like to try to watch hawks from. Is that data of any value to HMANA? I know they're not established hawk watches.
Is this like an anecdotal, like a location in your backyard, or how frequently are you counting? Is it just one observation or many?
I do count at my farm, but I don't think I don't get steady enough important numbers. I have had several thousand broadwings fly over in an hour, but that's not a regular occurrence. But Ron has been going to a different site on the same mountain, but a different site. And he's been counting there because it's the access problem to Mendota. It's hard for some people to get up there.
Yeah, I talked to Julie about that, and it was on the same mountain range. We're about 13 miles away from Mendota Fire Tower, and we're probably going to have some duplication there, of course. And we've learned already after doing that for 2 years that there's not as many hawks being seen up there at Bromley Mountain. It's about 1,000 foot higher, but the mountain is spread out so much, whereas Mendota, the mountain's very narrow. And I think that's the main reason. But we talked about that some, but that's a good question, Larry. There might be others in the area here that are wanting to have some alternate places to watch sites. So what would be your criteria for that, Julie? I mean, if someone wanted to start another site and report data to HMANA. Sure.
Yeah. Lots of people do that. If this is a site where you're going to be counting in a recurring way, then yeah, I encourage you to set up another account for it on HawkCount. You know, there's lots of people that do that maybe just go out for broadwing season every year for a week, and that's fine. We have elementary schools that count maybe 3 or 4 days a year, and that's great. It's the sometimes people contact HMANA saying, I just saw 7,000 broadwings. Do you want the data? And if it's not associated with a site that you're going to be going to time and time again, then that, I recommend eBird would be a better fit for that. But if this is a site where you're going to, then sure, we'd love to have your data in the database.
I'll get back to you about Bromley. We might want to revisit that.
Great.
We set it up. We set it up in cooperation with the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, and it is a site where folks just drive right up to it, just like on the Blue Ridge. They can get out the car and watch hawks. But I believe the last time we talked about that, it would be a problem in terms of being the proximity of the Mendota Tower and being only about 13 miles away, up range. So.
Yep. Yeah, you might. It's close. You might see some of the same birds, but yeah, I don't see a problem as long as it's not pulling your counters away from your main site. I think it would be fine.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Larry.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? Any closing comments? All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. I look forward to connecting with you guys again.